before recognizing the gentlelady from California, to the gentleman's first point. Not only is permission from a manager, supervisor in an agency different than probable cause, they didn't even follow the rules they'd set up within the agency with the manager. So that they didn't even follow those rules. That is why we need the tried and true standard. The gentlelady from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I listened to the witnesses, I was thinking back. It was, I think, a little more than 10 years ago that Mr. Massey and I offered an amendment with the help of then Congressman Justin Amash that would have prevented all of this. It did pass the House and never went into effect. And we have been, over the years, striving to do this, and somehow, no matter which party is in the majority, the Intelligence Committee always manages to thwart our efforts for reform. And I am hoping that that could change this year. We certainly failed last year in fixing the core problems. We have a chance to change this, and in fact, I'm working to reintroduce an updated bipartisan, bicameral Government Surveillance Reform Act, which will finally require warrants to read America's messages, ban dragnet surveillance, stop the government from buying personal data. And I'm hoping that many on this committee will join in that effort, as we have in the past. This is one of those issues where we do work together on a bipartisan basis, and I'm hoping that we can finally succeed this time. You know, the FISA court itself has called out the FBI for repeated unlawful searches, snooping on political donors, journalists, members of Congress, even protesters. And I think it's past time for us to fix this. If the government wants to read an American's email or text caught up in foreign surveillance, they should need a warrant. The FISA court found that the FBI misused the loophole hundreds of thousands of times. The NSA can resume collecting communications that merely mention a foreign target. That's permitted by law. They can still buy private data like location, web browsing, messages. And we're seeing, as we've mentioned, a growing trend of federal agencies, including defense and intelligence, contracting with companies like Palantir to compile data. So I'm hopeful that we can move forward, but I have a couple of quick questions. Ms. Goitan, there is an expanded scope of who counts as an electronic communication service provider. You referenced that in your testimony. Although the practical effects, I think, are classified, could you briefly explain what kind of businesses could now be required to assist government surveillance, such as data centers, cloud storage providers, or even companies that simply manage equipment that carry communications?
Sure. So in the past, the way that the surveillance has worked is that the government has served directives on electronic communication service providers. We're talking about Verizon and Google, companies that actually have direct access to our communications because they facilitate our communications. That's the service that they provide. And they would turn over the communications of targets. There was a FISA court opinion a few years ago, which found that data centers for cloud computing, at least it was reported that that was the type of provider at issue, did not qualify under that definition. The Biden administration wanted to make sure that they were included, but they didn't want to reveal that that was the type of provider at issue because that information was and remains classified. And so they deliberately solicited an overbroad amendment, one that was written in vague and very broad terms so that no one could figure out what kind of provider it was. And so what it now allows is the government can compel the assistance of any provider of any service, as long as that provider has access to equipment on which communications are routed or stored. Well, pretty much every American business and a lot of organizations provide some kind of service, and they all have access to communications equipment. That's a phone or a computer. Yep. So, and there are some exceptions, hotels, restaurants, libraries, but the vast majority of ordinary businesses that Americans frequent, and for example, the commercial landlords of the buildings where tens of millions of Americans go to work every day can be forced to assist the government with surveillance. And this part is really important because these businesses don't have the ability that Verizon or Google have to isolate and turn over specific communications. They may have to give
everything.
NSA personnel direct access to their communications equipment, and all the communications that run through that equipment, including purely domestic communications. And then the NSA will basically be on the honor system to extract the communications of foreign targets.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I just note that we also need to pass the privacy bill that Congresswoman Eshoo and I introduced a while ago, and I'm reintroducing, because we need to get it at FISA, but we also need to get it at the source so that people cannot sell our private data. And with that, I yield back.
I think the gentlelady, the gentleman